They say home is where the heart is. Mine was about to become a battlefield. I stood on the balcony of my Malibu villa, champagne flute trembling in my hand, staring at the 5 cars rolling up my pristine driveway like an invading army. My sister Serafina's black SUV led the procession, followed by sedans packed with people I'd never met, and a pickup truck loaded with enough luggage for a small village. The dream I'd worked 18 years to achieve was about to become my worst nightmare. And the worst part? I'd seen it coming the moment her name flashed on my phone 40 minutes earlier. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning, at the moment when everything I'd sacrificed finally seemed worth it. 3 hours earlier, I'd been standing in this exact spot, breathing in the salt air of the Pacific Ocean, feeling something I hadn't felt in decades. Peace. Real, uninterrupted peace. At 38 years old, I'd just closed on this $2 million villa, the culmination of nearly 2 decades of 80-hour work weeks, missed vacations, and a social life that existed only in theory. I was a senior partner at Henderson and Associates, one of LA's top architectural firms, and this house was my masterpiece, my sanctuary, my reward for all those years of saying yes to everyone else and no to myself. The villa was everything I'd dreamed of. Floor-to-ceiling windows that brought the ocean inside. Marble floors that gleamed like mirrors. 6 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom, decorated in soft creams and blues that echoed the waves below. This wasn't just a house. It was my declaration of independence, my fortress of solitude, the place where I could finally be myself without anyone demanding a piece of me. I hadn't invited my family to see it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That probably sounds harsh, but you'd understand if you knew them. Or more specifically, if you knew Serafina. My sister was 2 years older than me and had spent those 2 years perfecting the art of taking without giving. Growing up, she'd been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. Beautiful, charismatic, always the center of attention. I was the responsible one, the boring one, the one who studied while she partied, who worked while she played, who paid while she spent. Our parents had died in a car accident when I was 23, leaving us a modest inheritance. Serafina had blown through her half in 18 months. Mine had been carefully invested and had helped form the down payment on this villa. But Serafina's relationship with money didn't end with her inheritance. Over the past 15 years, she'd borrowed from me more times than I could count. $5,000 for a failed business venture, $3,000 for rent when she got evicted, $7,000 for a car that broke down 6 months later. I'd kept a record once, out of curiosity. The total was somewhere north of $60,000, money I'd never see again. But it wasn't just the money. It was the way she treated me like an ATM machine with a pulse. No genuine conversation, no real interest in my life, just the occasional text when she needed something. And I'd let it happen because some sick part of me still craved her approval, still wanted to be the good sister. The phone call shattered my champagne-fueled reverie like a rock through glass. I saw her name on the screen and felt that familiar twist in my stomach. I almost didn't answer, but old habits were strong, and my thumb hit the accept button before I could stop myself. "Charlotte!" Her voice was bright, cheerful, the tone she used when she wanted something. "Guess what? We're on our way to see you." My heart stopped. "What do you mean, on your way?" "Serafina, I never invited you over." "Oh, don't be silly. I saw your Instagram post about the new place. It looks absolutely incredible. We're about 40 minutes away." "There's 15 of us, so you'll need to get some bedrooms ready. We'll need towels, slippers, food, the works. We're staying for 3 weeks. I stood there, frozen, the champagne glass slipping from my fingers and shattering on the marble floor. 15 people. 3 weeks. No invitation, no permission. Just the entitled assumption that what was mine was hers to use as she pleased. "Serafina," I said slowly, "you can't just show up with 15 people and expect to move in for 3 weeks. This is my home, my private space. You should have asked." She laughed, that tinkling sound that now just grated on my nerves. "Asked? Charlie, we're sisters. Since when do sisters need to ask? Besides, you have all that room. 6 bedrooms, right? It'll be like summer camp." "No," I said, surprised by the firmness in my own voice. "No, you're not coming. Turn around and go home." "Too late. We're already past Santa Monica. See you soon. Oh, and can you order some pizzas? Charge it to your card and I'll pay you back later. Love you." "Oh." She hung up before I could respond, leaving me standing in the middle of my dream home with broken glass at my feet and a fury rising in my chest that felt like it might consume me whole. This was it. This was the moment I'd been avoiding for 15 years, the confrontation I'd been too scared to have, the boundary I'd been too weak to set. I looked at my phone, then at the ocean, then back at the phone. A strange calm settled over me. I walked to my bedroom, pulled out a small notebook from my nightstand, and flipped to the back pages where I'd written a name and number 6 months ago. Kyle Morrison, attorney at law. specializing in property rights and family disputes. My friend Marcus had recommended him after listening to yet another story about Serafina's latest transgression. I'd never called him. Never thought I'd need to, but I'd kept the number, some part of me knowing this day would come. My fingers were steady as I dialed. He answered on the third ring. Kyle Morrison. Mr. Morrison, my name is Charlotte Reeves. Marcus Chen recommended you. I need help, and I need it in the next 40 minutes. To his credit, he didn't ask stupid questions. Tell me what's happening. I explained everything as quickly as I could. When I finished, there was a brief silence. Miss Reeves, do you want these people in your home? No. Then they're trespassing. Here's what we're going to do. First, when they arrive, you do not let them in. Keep your door locked. Second, you call the non-emergency police line and report an attempted trespassing. Third, you record everything. Do you have security cameras? Not yet. I was going to install them next week. Then use your phone, video everything. And Miss Reeves, do not back down. People like this are counting on your guilt, your desire to keep the peace. The moment you show weakness, they'll walk all over you. I won't back down, I said, and meant it. Text me your address. I'll be there in 30 minutes. I hung up and immediately grabbed my iPad and laptop, setting them up to record the entryway and living room. They weren't professional surveillance systems, but they'd have to do. Then I waited, standing in my living room, watching through the window as the sun began to set over the Pacific. The doorbell rang at exactly 40 minutes after Serafina's call, and I watched through the side window as the convoy of cars disgorged their passengers. Serafina emerged first, wearing designer sunglasses and a white linen outfit. Behind her came a parade of people I didn't recognize. Young men and women, laughing and talking, pulling suitcases and carrying shopping bags. One man was already drinking a beer. A woman was taking selfies with my house in the background. The doorbell rang again, followed by pounding. Charlie, open up, we're here! I walked to the door, but didn't open it. Instead, I spoke through the intercom system. Serafina, I told you not to come. You need to leave. There was a moment of confused silence, then laughter. Charlie, stop being ridiculous. Open the door. You came without an invitation and without my permission. This is private property and you're not welcome. Please leave. The laughter died. Through the window, I saw Serafina remove her sunglasses, her face shifting from amused to annoyed. Charlotte Reeves, you open this door right now. We're family. You should have thought about that before showing up uninvited with 15 people. Leave now, or I'm calling the police. You wouldn't dare. Her voice had gone cold. Everyone will know what kind of person you really are. Selfish. Cruel. The kind of person I really am is someone who sets boundaries. Something I should have done years ago. I ended the intercom connection and dialed the non-emergency police line. As I explained the situation to the dispatcher, I watched through the window as Serafina tried the door handle, then walked around the side of the house, testing windows. One of her friends was filming it all on his phone. The dispatcher told me officers would be there within 20 minutes. A sleek gray sedan pulled up, and Kyle Morrison stepped out. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with dark hair going silver at the temples, and calm, authoritative presence. He walked straight up to Serafina. Excuse me, I'm Kyle Morrison, attorney for Miss Reeves. You are currently trespassing on private property. You need to leave immediately. Serafina turned to him with her most dazzling smile. Oh, there's been a misunderstanding. I'm Charlotte's sister. We're just here for a family visit. Miss Reeves has informed me that you were explicitly told not to come, that you arrived without invitation or permission, and that you've refused to leave when asked. That constitutes trespassing under California law. The police have been called and are on their way. I strongly suggest you leave before they arrive. The smile vanished. She called the cops? On her own sister? She called the police on trespassers who refused to leave her property. Your familial relationship doesn't grant you unlimited access to her home. I'd come outside now, standing behind Kyle, my phone recording everything. Serafina's eyes locked on mine, and for a moment I saw genuine shock. She'd truly believed I would never stand up to her. Charlotte, she said, her voice softer now. Please, we came all this way. There's nothing to talk about. I asked you not to come. You came anyway. You need to leave. Sirens wailed in the distance. 2 patrol cars pulled up, and 4 officers stepped out. The next hour was a blur of explanations and documentation. Serafina tried to play the victim, tears streaming down her face. But Kyle had the texts, the call records, and the recording of her initial phone call where she'd announced her plans without asking permission. One of the officers, a woman with kind eyes and gray hair, took me aside. Ma'am, you're well within your rights here. Are you sure about this? Family conflicts can get messy. I'm sure, I said. This has been messy for 15 years. I'm just finally doing something about it. She nodded. Good for you. The officers gave Serafina and her friends 15 minutes to get off my property. As they loaded back into their cars, Serafina walked past me, her face twisted with rage. You're going to regret this. she hissed. Everyone's going to know what you did. You'll lose everything. I looked her straight in the eye. The only thing I'm losing is you, and that's not a loss, Serafina. That's freedom. She spit at my feet, then she was gone, the convoy of cars disappearing down my driveway. Kyle stayed for another hour, helping me document everything and explaining the next steps. She's going to retaliate. Be prepared for a social media smear campaign. Save everything she posts. Don't engage. What if she comes back? Then you call the police again. And if it continues, we file for a restraining order. But first, we're going to send her a cease and desist letter. The next morning, I woke to find my phone exploding with notifications. Serafina had posted on every social media platform, painting herself as the victim of a heartless sister. The posts were masterful manipulations, carefully crafted to make her look sympathetic. She'd included photos of the officers escorting her away, with sob stories about how success had changed me. My friend Marcus called within an hour. "She's gone nuclear. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, and realized I meant it. Let her tell whatever story she wants. The truth is on my side. But it was harder than I'd anticipated, watching the lies spread. By noon, my mother's best friend had called, begging me to reconsider. An aunt I barely knew sent a long email about forgiveness. A cousin posted cryptic messages about how some people forgot their roots when they got money. Kyle called that afternoon to tell me the cease and desist letter had been sent. She'll receive it today. If she's smart, she'll back off. And if she's not? Then we build a case and take her to court. Over the next week, Serafina's campaign escalated. She created a GoFundMe, claiming she was homeless because of me. She posted old photos of us as children with nostalgic captions. She even got friends to post their own versions of the story, but she made a critical mistake. In her fury, she started exaggerating, then lying. She claimed I'd physically threatened her, a complete fabrication that crossed the line into defamation. Kyle pounced. "That's actionable. She just gave us grounds for a lawsuit." "Do we have to?" "She accused you of assault, Charlotte. That's not something you let slide. We need to shut this down now." So we filed a defamation lawsuit with screenshots of every false statement, every lie. We also filed for a restraining order based on her harassment. The restraining order was granted within days, with a hearing scheduled to make it permanent. Serafina was ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my home, and my workplace. While this was unfolding, I hired a private investigator named Thomas Miller. Within 2 weeks, he presented me with a file that made my blood run cold. Serafina had a record: bad checks, credit cards opened in other people's names, a small claims court judgment for failing to repay a loan, 2 evictions. And most damning, restraining orders filed by 2 different ex-boyfriends, both citing financial exploitation and emotional manipulation. The restraining order hearing was surreal. Serafina showed up in a conservative dress, playing the wounded victim. She testified first, telling a story that bore only a passing resemblance to reality. She cried on the stand, talking about how much she missed the sister I used to be. Then it was my turn. Kyle walked me through the timeline methodically. The text messages showing her demands for money over the years, screenshots of her social media posts bragging about trips and purchases while claiming to be broke, the phone call recording from that day, the police report, and finally, the messages she'd sent after the cease and desist, including threats about ruining my reputation and career. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, listened without expression. When we finished, she took off her glasses and looked directly at Serafina. "Miss Vance, I've been on this bench for 20 years. The pattern I see here is of someone who has repeatedly taken advantage of her sister's generosity, and when that sister finally set a boundary, responded with harassment and defamation. The restraining order is made permanent. You are to have no contact with Miss Reeves for a minimum of 5 years. You are also ordered to remove all defamatory social media posts within 24 hours and to post a retraction and apology. Failure to comply will result in contempt charges." Serafina's face had gone white. "But she's my sister." "That fact should have made you treat her better, not worse." Order granted. We walked out of the courthouse into blazing California sunshine. I felt tired and sad rather than victorious. Kyle suggested coffee, and we sat in a little cafe nearby. "I should feel better," I said. "I won. Why don't I feel better?" "Because winning in court doesn't erase 15 years of being hurt by someone you loved. It just means you've protected yourself from future harm. The healing part comes later." Over the next few months, I threw myself into that healing process. I took on a major project at work, designing a sustainable housing complex in San Diego. I started going to the gym regularly, took a pottery class, said yes to dinner invitations I'd previously declined. The defamation lawsuit settled out of court 3 months later. Serafina agreed to pay $50,000 in damages, a public retraction, and to never speak about me publicly again. I also started seeing a therapist, Dr. Rachel Hayes, who helped me understand why I'd found it so difficult to stand up for myself. "Your role in the family was to be the easy child," she explained. Your sister got attention through drama. You got attention by being responsible and undemanding. Those patterns don't just disappear when you become an adult. The unlearning was painful but necessary. I had to grieve not just the sister relationship, but also the childhood dynamics that had set me up to be exploited. One exercise Dr. Hayes gave me was to write letters I'd never send. I filled a notebook with them, then burned them in a private ceremony on the beach, watching the smoke carry away words that no longer had power over me. 6 months after that chaotic day, I was finally starting to feel at home in my villa. I'd filled it with things I loved: plants, art from local galleries, books. I hosted a dinner party for friends from work. I started swimming in the ocean every morning, a ritual that centered me. My relationship with Kyle had deepened into something neither of us had been looking for but both welcomed. He understood boundaries in a way most people didn't. Our relationship unfolded naturally, built on respect and genuine affection rather than need or obligation. His daughter Emma, 16 and sharp, had been skeptical at first, but over time, we'd found our own rhythm. I never tried to be her mother, just someone who was glad to be in her life. My career flourished too. The San Diego project won an award for innovative design, and I was made lead architect on a new civic center project, a career-defining opportunity that would have been impossible if I'd still been dealing with Serafina's constant crises. A year after that first day, I stood on the same balcony where it had all begun. Everything was different now. The house was no longer just a collection of beautiful rooms, but a home filled with memories I'd chosen to create. I'd hosted Thanksgiving dinner for Marcus and his partner, Jennifer and her family, Kyle and Emma. We'd laughed until our sides hurt, played board games until midnight. It was the first holiday in years where I hadn't felt obligated to invite people who made me miserable. Marcus and I had talked about the changes over coffee one morning. "You're different," he said. "Lighter somehow." "That's exactly what it feels like," I said. I didn't realize how much energy I was spending on managing her chaos. It was exhausting myself but never actually getting anywhere. "Do you miss her at all?" I thought about that carefully. I miss the idea of having a sister. But do I miss Serafina herself? No, you can't miss what you never really had. There had been one test of my resolve. 8 months after the legal battle, Diana, my elderly cousin, had called to tell me Serafina had been in a car accident. Nothing life-threatening, but she'd broken her arm. I'd sat with that information for hours, feeling the pull of old obligations. But I'd called Dr. Hayes instead. She'd asked me one question: if this were anyone else who treated you the way Serafina has, what would you do? The answer was obvious. I wouldn't rush to help someone who'd harassed and defamed me. So I'd sent flowers to the hospital through Diana, a polite gesture that acknowledged the situation without reopening the door I'd closed. Serafina had apparently thrown them away and sent a message about how heartless I was. It had hurt, but it had also confirmed I'd made the right choice. Now, standing on my balcony on this anniversary of sorts, I raised a glass to my younger self, to the woman who'd finally found the courage to say enough. The sun was setting in brilliant oranges and pinks. Music drifted from inside, something jazzy that Kyle had put on before leaving to pick up Emma. They'd be back in an hour for dinner. This was what peace felt like. Not the absence of conflict, but the presence of authenticity, of living in alignment with my values. I'd built this life deliberately, choice by choice, boundary by boundary. My phone buzzed with texts. Jennifer congratulating me on my civic center design being featured in the Times. Emma complaining about her dad's music taste and telling me she'd saved me brownies. I laughed and responded with hearts. I thought about that first day, watching the convoy arrive, the panic I'd felt, how close I'd come to backing down. If I had, where would I be now? Still trapped in the same cycle, still being used, still measuring my worth by my ability to meet her endless demands. Instead, I'd chosen differently. I'd chosen myself. And that choice had led to everything good in my life now. The career success, the meaningful relationships, the genuine peace, the self-respect. Dr. Hayes had told me something I'd taped to my bathroom mirror. Choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. And sometimes self-preservation is the most courageous choice you can make. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway pulled me from my thoughts. Kyle and Emma were back. I smiled and went inside to greet them, leaving the empty glass on the balcony railing. Tomorrow I'd be back at work on the Civic Center project. Next weekend I had pottery class and dinner with Marcus. Next month we were taking Emma on a road trip up the coast. Life wasn't perfect, but it was good. Really, genuinely good in a way that felt sustainable. I'd learned to protect my peace fiercely, to trust my instincts, to invest in relationships that were reciprocal rather than parasitic. I'd learned that walking away from toxicity wasn't giving up. It was choosing life over slow poison. As I set the table for dinner, listening to Emma's animated story while Kyle made pasta sauce, I felt a contentment that went bone deep. This was what I'd been fighting for. Not just a beautiful house or career success, but the right to live authentically, to be surrounded by people who valued me for who I was, to build a life that reflected my choices. Serafina had taught me something valuable, though not in the way she'd intended. She'd taught me that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to walk away. That enabling dysfunction doesn't help anyone change, that you can't love someone into treating you better. That family is about how people treat you, not just biology. I wasn't the same woman who'd stood on that balcony a year ago, champagne glass trembling. That woman had been on the edge of a breakthrough but didn't know it yet. This woman knew her limits and respected them. She knew her worth and protected it. She knew the difference between being kind and being a doormat. She knew that sometimes the only way to find peace is to walk through conflict first. Emma called me to the table, and I joined them, sitting down to a meal with people who chose to be here. We talked and laughed, made plans, discussed Emma's college essay and Kyle's latest case and my design. Ordinary conversation that I now recognized as precious. After dinner, Kyle and I stood on the balcony while Emma did homework inside. The ocean was dark now, just the sound of waves and distant boat lights. He put his arm around my shoulders, and I leaned into him. "You know what I realized today?" I said. "A year ago I thought this house was my dream come true, and it is beautiful. But the house was never really the point. The point was claiming the right to a life that was mine, on my terms, without apologizing for it." "And have you?" he asked. "Claimed it?" I thought about everything. The Civic Center project, Emma's easy presence, the pottery studio, the garden, the friends, the morning swims, the peaceful nights. "Yes," I said. "I really have." He kissed the top of my head. "Good, you deserve it." I'd finally started to believe that. I deserved peace. I deserved respect. I deserved to take up space in my own life without apologizing. Inside, Emma called out that she needed help with homework. Kyle went to help, and I stayed on the balcony a moment longer, breathing in the salt air, feeling the peace that now settled into my bones like something that had always belonged there. This was the life I'd built from the ruins of the one that wasn't working. This was the woman I'd become when I stopped trying to be the woman everyone else needed me to be. This was freedom, hard-won and fiercely protected. I thought about that future Serafina had threatened me with, alone in my empty mansion, friendless and full of regret. But she'd been wrong about everything. The mansion wasn't empty. It was full of life I'd chosen. I wasn't alone. I was surrounded by people who actually cared. And I only regretted not doing this sooner. The balcony door opened, and Emma poked her head out. "Charlotte? Dad says the brownies are ready. You coming?" "Yeah," I said, turning away from the ocean with a smile. "I'm coming." And I did, leaving the ghosts of the past where they belonged, walking toward the warm light and laughter of the life I'd fought for and won. This was my story now, not a tale of victimhood but one of reclamation and rebirth. And I was writing every word of it myself.